We keep the kids down, inshallah, people.
MashaAllah, that was fast.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Obviously, first and foremost, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our gathering one that is blessed and one that is done sincerely for Him and only for Him. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make this blessing a means of rectifying our worldly lives as well as our lives to come in the hereafter. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His beautiful names and perfect attributes to heal all of the sick and heal Muslims. We also ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve them from debt and from the burden of owing. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help the Muslims who are oppressed and persecuted wherever they may be throughout His earth, and to give them the strength and the sabr and the courage and the ability to overcome their enemies and adversaries. Last but not least, I ask Him subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward you well and give you beneficial information, beneficial knowledge and wisdom, and to accept your sacrifices for coming out, showing your support, showing your love, showing your respect, listening, benefiting and waiting. May Allah Azza wa Jalla give you both the spiritual reward and the tangible fa'idah. Allahumma ameen. With that being said, my topic is going to be on the history of Christmas, or the dark history of Christmas. And before I get into this topic and its importance and why I chose it, etc., a few years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we did a lecture at Masjid Mujahideen in West Philly on Western holidays in light of Kitab and Sunnah. Western holidays in light of Kitab and Sunnah, in which we mentioned many beneficial points and principles regarding a holiday, an Eastern holiday, a Northern holiday, a Southern holiday, let alone a Western holiday, in light of the Quran and the Sunnah, and what the Muslim should or shouldn't do, can or cannot do, what is the stance of the Muslim regarding these holy days, whether it be Christmas, whether it be Thanksgiving, whether it be Halloween, whether it be St. Patrick's Day, whether it be St. Valentine's Day, or any other type of holiday. Anything which is a day and which is called a holiday, a festive day. Alright? So inshallah ta'ala, please go back to the lecture series, whereas many things that we're not going to mention tonight have been mentioned there with detail for lack of time. Then obviously there are going to be a few overlapping points, and we're going to mention a few fawaid again because they're very extremely important. But the whole entire systematic breakdown, you have to go back to that lecture. Also, bid'nillahi ta'ala, the recent khutbah that we did on Christmas, the day of Mirza, also Halloween, and also Thanksgiving. We've done fa'idas and khutbahs on all of those major Western holidays. And if you want the total benefit and the total understanding from my humble point of view, then it's best to take it all of those lectures and khutbahs as a whole. What you don't get in this one, you get in that one. What's mentioned in brief here, we'll mention in detail there. Everyone understand this? Yes. Inshallah ta'ala. So that being said, the concept of history, we need a few basic ground rules before we move forward with regards to history. And the first ground rule is that history is broken down into two words. His story. The story of a person. And oftentimes a person puts in a book or in a documentary or in a lecture or makes it a standardized religion or language or culture of one's country based off of what they think and feel and how they want it to go. So everything that you read of history is not always factual. And oftentimes history is his story. The story of the victor. The story of the most wealthy. The story of the most conniving and slimy, who had the lack of integrity to make a total false fabrication. And this is what Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions in Surah Al-Kahf about those righteous believers, those young men who left their homes, left their parents, left their families out of fear of oppression and fitna to worship idols. And they were caused to sleep for that very long time in the caves. And then the people, they discovered them and they found them. And they differed over how many of the people of the Kahf there actually were. قَالَ الَّذِينَ غَلَبُوا عَلَى أَمْرِهِمْ لَنَتَّخِذَنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ مَسْجِدًا. Allah says, and those who won at the end, those who had the most power, those who conquered, those who were victorious at the end, they said, indeed, we will build a shrine over their graves. Indeed, we will make a place of worship, a masjid over that cave. So the people in the cave, they never worshipped idols. That's why they went to the cave. They ran from the worshiping of idols and deities and gods and goddesses and spirits. But those who won, yani, in other words, the people of the dunya, the people of power and influence, they made their version of the history. So there are many saints today, and many shrines and places of worship that are made for people that were against that. But that's not the version that you get, because the story is going to be of him, his story. If I have the most money, or the most strength, or the most audaciousness, I will rewrite it and say this is why he died, and this is what he supported, and this is, and so on and so on and so forth. It's a very important principle, is that everything is not factual of what you may read in a book or what you may hear in a lecture. So with that being said, you have to scratch beneath the surface, and you have to go to an unorthodox source to get the true, actual, factual information of history and not his story. Everyone understand this? And something which is very ironic with regards to Christmas and other holidays, let's say for example St. Patrick's Day. Who was St. Patrick and what did he do? St. Patrick and Christmas go hand in hand. If you read the true story of St. Patrick and what he stood for and how the people falsely celebrate his day to this day is the same concept of Christmas. That's ground rule number one. Ground rule number two is that historical information which is factual never needs to be apologetic, and it never needs to be watered down, and it never needs to be toned down to appease the people's emotions and feelings and thoughts or what they've heard about all of these years. The facts never need to apologize. All right. Number three, and Allah Azza wa Jalla, he clearly mentions this in the Quran, that if the truth were to follow their desires, the heavens and the earth would all be ruined. And everything in the heavens and the earth would be ruined if the truth had followed the people's lusts, what they want, how we want to hear it, how we want to accept it. So the truth does not apologize to the falsehood. The batil does not take a bow to the batil, to the haqq it doesn't compromise to the falsehood. Rather, the falsehood is supposed to bend towards the truth. Point number three is, alaykum salam, to factual information, that's real factual information. It doesn't necessarily have to be a doubt, something doubtful, or a conspiracy theory. All right? And oftentimes people of falsehood, they give bad names and titles to proofs and evidences. So if they believe something, and you come with another type of belief or another piece of information and say, that's a doubt, that's a shubhat. Or they say, this is a conspiracy theory. Well, maybe I have the haqq, and what you're following is doubtful, and it isn't proven. Everyone understand this? So facts can be called doubts, and doubts can be called what? Facts. And it can always go on both sides. This is the truth, this is what you have to do. And anyone who says otherwise, he clearly mentioned his proofs and evidence that those are doubts. I can easily say what? The opposite. I have the truth with me, and with you, you have the what? Doubts. Everyone understand this? Or the concept of conspiracy theory. They say, oh, that's not true. You're just making that up. You're trying to sound like this. No, you're going too deep. You're exaggerating, so on and so forth. And I can easily say the what? The opposite about you. You're trying to cover something up and trying to prove your version of the story. So these are certain ground rules when it comes to history in general, let alone to this lecture. Bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to break things down, when we talk about Christmas, there's two ways of looking at Christmas. We can look at Christmas from a religious standpoint, and we can look at Christmas from a worldly standpoint. And also we can look at Christmas from the concept of history. We have world, we have religion, and we have history. 2 or 3 different views with regards to this holiday called Christmas. Now, it's a well-known fact, and it's a historical fact, that one of the strongest countries and the largest empire that ever existed in the modern age was that of Great Britain. That of Great Britain. And Great Britain, it conquered many, many, many lands. So many lands that it was called the nation or the empire over which the sun never sets. Meaning, if it's nighttime here, it's daytime there. that one way or another, in one country, one continent, one time zone, there is the flag of Great Britain flying in the wind. That's how much land it had conquered. And we obviously know that the concept of the colonial age, conquering countries, subjugating civilizations and nations, there are many factors involved. And from the factors involved is religion. It's religion. One of the things that justified the treatment of those people was religion. Is that your religion is paganism, is heathenism. We have the Holy Cross with us, Christian, and the Christian and Christianity is the way of civilized people. All right? And those who worshiped idols and they made shirk, they were subjugated because of the cross and the superiority of the cross and the Christians' understanding of monotheism. So this is the modern version of history, which is true. But there was only a couple hundred years ago, if not more than 100 years ago, in which that place called Great Britain, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and those countries, they themselves were pagans and heathens. And they worshipped idols and spirits and gods and goddesses. And they were upon shirk and kufr. And that which was total blasphemy with regards to their modern Christian faith. Everyone understand this. But that's not the version that you get. We've always been civilized. We've always been Christians. We've always been followers of the cross. And these savage, barbaric, inhumane nations have always been what? Idol worshippers. Everyone understand this? But that's not the actual fact. That's not the fact. So, you say, where am I going with this now? It's a direct connection between Christmas and between the history of these nations. And it's not just the UK, the modern concept of the UK, Great Britain, Germany, France, Italy. All of these Christian nations, at one point in time, were upon shirk. They were upon idol worship until they were officially converted to Christianity or Catholicism. Everyone with me so far? So with that being said, where does Christmas come from? And is Christmas a Christian festival or celebration? Or does it have elements of paganism and idolatry that either remained from the time before they converted, or things in which they compromised to bring more pagans and idolaters into the way of Christianity? Everyone understand the question? Two things we have now. The first is traces of shirk that remain in Christianity and that remain in Christian holidays. That's number one. Things that weren't eradicated fully. Number two, things that the Christians themselves in Western Europe, they knew was acts of paganism and idolatry, but they turned a blind eye. But they mandated it for the purpose of allowing more pagan people to come into Christianity. And it's too difficult, it's too hard to say that you have to get rid of this holiday or this celebration. And you can't say this and you can't do that. They will not accept it. They'll never ever become Christians. It's too rigid, it's too strict. So therefore we have to open our doors more and allow more of their pagan, heathen ways in under the name of Christianity. And that is exactly what has happened with Christmas and other holidays as well. Everyone understand this? So therefore, obviously, there were many people who invaded Britain, or Great Britain, England, before it was a formal country. And there were many people who migrated from the European countries to the New World, to the United States. And whenever you have people mixing, on any level of mixing, marriage, buying, selling, fighting, invading, conquering, there's always going to be a mixture of culture. And there's going to be trading of ideas and values. And if your faith, if your aqidah, whatever it is, if it is not strong and protected, and if your worldly situation as well is not compromised, there lies no doubt you're going to go through change. You're going to go through change. So someone can have strong faith, but they may have extreme poverty, or they're extremely weak. And not of someone who's extremely strong. That's going to have an effect on their practice and on their aqidah. And they're going to compromise, if not totally forsake their deen. Everyone understand this? One or two things now. The first is the strength of one's conviction. And every non-Muslim isn't necessarily convicted with their faith. There are many people, if not most of them, will say we just do it because our fathers did it. It doesn't make any sense. There's no textual proof for it, but it's the custom. It's what my people did before me, so I'm going to do it. And when the truth is brought to them, or even if it isn't the truth, but another faith, another religion that is stronger than theirs, there's a big possibility that they will accept it. And they will relinquish that which their forefathers were upon. Muslim, Jew, Christian, Kafir. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is those who do have a very strong conviction in their faith, whatever their faith may be, truth or falsehood, but their worldly life is totally compromised. That they're linked upon until which they start compromising and giving up their faith. Everyone understand this? I wish I believe this, but there's no way I can do this in public. There's no way I can avoid eating this. There's no way I can denounce this and reject that, because it's too difficult from a worldly stance. And that is from the origins of Christmas. From the origins of Christmas. From the origins of what? From the origins of Christmas. Right, moving forward. Before we get to this origin and where it comes from in its history in detail, the point that I want to bring up is this goes to show us the tremendous danger of compromising with the people of Kufr and Shirk and befriending them and obeying them and listening to them. It shows us the tremendous danger of imitating them and the tremendous danger of looking at them with glossy eyes, shiny eyes, and being amazed at what they're upon. And when the Muslims started doing things like this, looking towards non-Muslims for guidance, and they're better, and they're more advanced, and they're above and beyond us, the Muslim aqidah, the Muslim practice, and the Muslim identity, it started to what? Crumble and fall apart. Until the situation that we're in today. The situation that we're in today. And the Quran and the Sunnah are full of ayat that warn us against this danger of obeying those who have been given the scripture, of looking towards the hayat dunya, of being amazed by what they have of wealth and of children. Quran and the Sunnah clearly warns us from these things. And the only reason why Allah Azza wa Jalla warns us therefrom is because it will happen and it can happen. And once you begin to compromise our Islam and our identity and our practice and the purity of our belief and our culture of Islam starts to fade and diminish. Starts to what? Fade and diminish. Moving forward. Khairan inshallah ta'ala. So the following points I'd like to discuss. First and foremost is holidays. If Christmas wasn't a pagan holiday or a Christian holiday, whatever it is it permissible for us to celebrate it? Number two is the direct connection between Christmas and the creed of the Trinity. The Trinity, the belief that Allah, Isa, the Holy Ghost, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit are all divinely intertwined. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came down in the form of a man to be humiliated, to be hung or hanged and crucified and tortured for the forgiveness and the redemption of the sinful humans. This is something that you cannot remove from Christmas. And if you accept that, then you're going to be forced to accept that. Number three, in brief, when we talk about history and inaccurate dates, was Jesus Christ, the Son of Mary, born on the 25th of December? Was it even in the winter time in which he was born? Was he born in a stable or barn and those wise men brought him gold and frankincense and myrrh in the middle of the winter? Everyone understand this? So if he wasn't born on the 25th of December, then whose birthday are they actually celebrating? And what deity was born or died on that day? And this is crucially important to understand the direct connection between shirk and between Christmas. And that is far deeper than a Christian holiday. Even if they don't know it, or they know it, but they refuse to accept it. Number four, with regards to paganism and how people celebrate their false gods and their deities besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how they physically manifest it with regards to what you eat during Christmas, or what you hang in your window, or on your car, or what you stand under, or what you say to someone, or what colors you wear during the Christmas season, and how symbolic all of those things were to the worship of those gods and goddesses, those idols, those alihah, those false deities. Moving forward, number five is the concept of wastefulness, spendthriftiness, and consumerism. And that has nothing to do with the concept of shirk, nothing to do with the concept of the Trinity in Christianity, and nothing to do with the concept of one's aqidah. But it's definitely a part of our deen. Is what is the ruling on being a spendthrift? What is the ruling on wasting money? Point number six is the concept of al-bara' wal-wala, is love and hate. Love and hate. Do we really love the non-Muslims, or do we hate them? Do we really, can we honestly say that we hate them and we don't want to be like them, and we only love for them for Islam, or we accept their ways and they accept lakum dinukum waliya din? You have your religion, I have mine. Was that the final revelation sent down from the Quran? La ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in the religion. Was that the last ayah sent down in the Quran? To you is your way and to me is mine. Was that the last thing that Allah wanted us to be upon with regards to non-Muslims, of the mushrikeen, the Jews and the Christians? Or was it something else? So al-bara wal-wala, as we all know, is the core of the religion. And ironic hypocrisy is that we say we read from the books of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, and we take from his books and we learn from his books, and he was the mujaddid, and he was the muslih, and he was a reformist, etc. But the main core of his dawah was nothing more than bara and wala. There's no book that you can read of Ibn Abdul Wahhab except that he talks about it. From Usul al-Thalatha to his largest books. The concept of being free. Al-bara'a min al-shirki wa ahlihi. Removing yourself from shirk and his people. And being free from shirk and his people in every sense, form, and fashion. And that is something which you cannot uphold, celebrating, allowing, tolerating, or recognizing Christmas. They just don't go together. It's like water and oil. There cannot be wala and bara and you celebrate or allow someone to say Merry Christmas or it's okay and there's nothing wrong with it. Moving forward. After that we have the concept of showing off and seeking fame and reputation and lack of sincerity. How does this pertain to Christmas? Who buys the biggest gift? Who spends the most money? Who has the fanciest clothes? Who spends the most money on their children even though the children are undeserving of those gifts? That is something which you're going to infringe and violate if you celebrate Christmas and accept things with regards to Christmas. After that is cheating one's children. Cheating one's children. Forsaking one's children. And one of the ugliest things with Christmas is that you give your children gifts even though they don't deserve those gifts. They weren't obedient. They weren't nice. They weren't respectful. And they know they weren't. And you say, I'm not going to buy nothing for Christmas. I'm not going to give you anything for Christmas. But the child knows that you're lying. And the child knows that you're weak. And the child knows that I'm going to get this, and that for Christmas, even though I know it was bad disrespect. I'm not making this up. The children, they know this. That you don't have the ability to tell them no, nor are you going to ruin your entire Christmas just to discipline this one child that was utterly disrespectful. And this is not the Islamic way of raising children. That's not the Islamic way of disciplining children to spoil a child, in which they can do bad, they can do evil, and still get their way. And if that's how you raise your child, know for sure that you have cheated your children. Because when they grow up, the same behavior will continue. I don't have to do it the right way. I don't have to follow the rules. I don't have to show respect. I don't have to obey, and I'm going to get my way. And if I can't get my way, my weak father, my weak mother will be there to bail me out every single time. It's not something that's pertaining to young children who have a temper tantrum. Children in college, people when they become grown, marriage, divorce, domestic abuse, all of these things are based off of how a person is raised. And how a person or what a person gets in life, even though they don't do it the right way. And this is from the greatest harms with regards to the secular effects of Christmas. Moving forward. So we have the history of Christmas. We have so many customs of Christmas. Moving forward, before we go that far, something that we mentioned in the lecture regarding the Western holidays. We mentioned the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar, the famous hadith, in which the Prophet ﷺ is quoted to have said, the hadith is in Musnad Imam Ahmad. He says, بُعِثْتُ بِالسَّيْفِ بَيْنِ يَدِ السَّاعَةِ حَتَّى يُعْبُدُ اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent me before the coming of the last day. I have been sent before the hour, bis-sayf, with the sword, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be worshipped and no one else to be worshipped. وَجُعِلَ رِزْقِي فِي أَوْ تَحْتَ ظِلِّ رُمْحِي. He says, and my provision and my sustenance, my food and my drink, my money, has been placed beneath the shade of my spear, meaning that I'm a warrior. And my entire message is based off of being a warrior. And I'm supposed to live, and I'm supposed to earn my keep from being a warrior. This is a tremendous hadith now, brothers and sisters. The Prophet is telling us and warning us from being soft and being complacent and not living with the mentality of the warrior. He says, my sustenance has been placed beneath the shade of my spear, meaning that is where I get my wealth from. That is how I make my wealth and my living, through being a warrior. The Prophet then says, وَجُعِلَتِ الظِّلَّةُ وَالصَّغَارُ عَلَى مَنْ خَالَفَ أَمْرِي. He says, in humiliation and disgrace will be cast upon those who disobey my commands. Humiliation and disgrace will be cast upon those who disobey my commands. وَمَنْ تَشَبَّهَ بِقَوْمٍ فَهُوَ مِنْهُمْ. The last part of the hadith, which is commonly quoted, and I gave you the entire version of the hadith to show you the whole concept. He says, and whoever obeys or whoever imitates the people, then he's from them. Whoever imitates the people, then he's from them. Then it's permissible to just quote one section of a hadith. It's permissible to quote one sentence from hadith. It's permissible. But you cannot get the full understanding and depth of the hadith if you do not read it from beginning to end. So the Prophet ﷺ, he basically says the following words. Allah has sent me as the final messenger. And there's no one that's going to come after me before the last day. Before the hour. I'm the last one. If you do not embark upon this ship, then there's no other ship that will deliver you from safety. You will drown. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he sent me with something. And that thing, everything about it represents and symbolizes seriousness. And that's the sword. There's nothing about sword that's friendly or fun. It's an object and it's an instrument with a specific purpose. So the seriousness of the sword, the Prophet says, that's what Allah has sent me with. And despite him sending me with the sword, he says that my sustenance, my rizq, has been placed beneath the shade of my sword, of my spear, another instrument. And those who disobey me, those who go against me, they will be disgraced and humiliated. Last but not least, and whoever imitates the people, whoever copycats the people, whoever mimics another people from which he is not from, فَهُوَ مِنْهُمْ, then he'll be from among them. And obviously most people, they understand the negative connotation of this hadith, imitating the kuffar. But there's a positive connotation of this hadith, which is imitating the righteous. Being like the righteous, being like the knowledgeable people, trying your best to strive, then bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, hopefully you'll be among them. You understand this? Imitate successful people. تشبهوا بالكرام وإن لم تكونوا مثلهم إن التشبه بالكرام فلاح. As the poet said, he says, imitate the successful, imitate noble people. Because even if you're not from them, you'll be someone who gets some type of success. Some type of success. So subhanAllah says, strive to be righteous, to strive to be pious, to strive to be knowledgeable. Even if you feel that you're not that knowledgeable, you're not that pious, but you have to try. You have to strive. And obviously the main interpretation of the hadith, the negative connotation is that those who imitate non-Muslims, those who imitate fusaq, sinful Muslims, then they will be from them. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah he said regarding this hadith, وَهَذَا الْحَدِيثُ أَقَلُّ أَحْوَالِهِ أَنْ يَقْتَضِيَ تَحْرِيمَ التَّشَبُّهِ بِهِمْ وإن كان ظاهر يقتضي كفر المتشبه بهم كما في قوله ومن يتولهم منكم فإنه منهم. He says this hadith here has only two levels. There's no middle level of this hadith. It's either at best or at worst. He says at worst, this hadith proves that those who imitate the mushrikeen and the kuffar are not Muslims. They're upon kufr. That's at worst. And at best, he says, and it clearly proves that it is haram to do so. It's haram to do so. You understand the difference? He says, at best, the zahir of the hadith, that which is outward from the hadith, is that those who imitate these people are not upon Islam. It's kufr. And I said at best, is that it's definitely haram to imitate them. And the Prophet, he did not specify in his hadith to imitate them in their clothes, or their drink, or their sayings, or their cliches, or their holidays. He says, وَمَن تَشَبَّهَ بِقَوْمٍ, any people, whether they have an Abrahamic faith, whether they're monotheism, whether they're pagans, idolaters, heathens, he says, be qawmin, a people. So if you imitate the people, then you're from them. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he then says, regarding this hadith and its danger, he says here, فَقَدْ يُحْمَلُ هَذَا عَلَى التَّشَبُّهِ الْمُطْلَقِ فَإِنَّهُ يُوجِبُ الْكُفْرِ ويقتضي تحريم أبعاد ذلك وقد يحمل على أنه منهم في القدر المشترك الذي شابههم فيه فإن كان كفرا أو معصية أو شعارا كان لا حكمه كذلك وبكل حال يقتضي تحريم التشبه. انتهى كلامه باختصار. He says in this hadith can mean one or two things. Is that those who are imitating the kuffar and the mushrikeen, absolutely. Or those who imitate the kuffar and the mushrikeen as something which is partial. Something which is partial. To absolutely imitate them and to take their whole entire way. Or you have your way, your identity, your faith, your aqidah, but you imitate them as something partial. So if you imitated them in a partial thing, and that's kufr, then that specific act from among you is kufr. If you imitated them in a partial or individual thing and it was disobedience, then that act from among you is what? Is disobedience. And that's the summarized interpretation of Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala with regards to that hadith. Moving forward, bidhnillah. Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, continuing regarding this, he says, فَالْمُشَابَهَةُ وَالْمُشَارَكَةُ أو المشاكلة في الأمور الظاهرة توجب مشابهة ومشاكلة في الأمور الباطنة على وجه المسارقة والتدريج الخفي. He says, imitating someone outwardly leads to you imitating them inwardly. Being like a person outwardly leads to you being like a person inwardly. It leads to it. So even if a person says it's just clothes, or it's just a holiday, or it's just saying Merry Christmas, or it's just, that is deeper than that. And eventually he says, musaraqa, it will be thievery. Someone's identity will be stolen. Someone's character will be stolen. Someone's character will be adopted. He says, what tadrij al-khafi. He says, hidden progression. Slowly. It starts off with a handshake, and then this, and then I'll celebrate, and I'll come, and I'll just show my face, and I'll pay my respects, and I won't say anything about it. And the next thing you know, in 5-10 years, you've accepted it. Everyone understand this? But it isn't something which is apparent. He says, at-tadrij al-khafi. It's subtle, and it's what? Progressive. It's subtle and what? Progressive. And in most times when you find out about the cancer, it's what? Oftentimes what? Too late. Because you've ignored it. And it's slowly and progressively grown. And now it's too aggressive. And it can't just be conveniently removed. Everyone understand this? So Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he says here, being like people outwardly is nothing more than a road and a path to being like someone what? Inwardly. Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, وَقَدْ رَأَيْنَا الْيَهُودَ وَالنَّصَارَى الَّذِينَ عَاشَرَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ هُمْ أَقَلُّ كُفْرًا مِنْ غَيْرِهِمْ. Ibn Taymiyyah says, and indeed we have seen Jews and Christians who lived in Muslim lands, who had Muslim neighbors, and we saw that their kufr was far less than those who didn't live with Muslims. The Christians who lived in the Muslim lands under their protection, or they were neighbors, or the Christians were in charge and the Muslims lived under their protection, they lived with the Muslims. He says their kufr was what? Aqal. It was less. They weren't as nasty and vicious. Because of what? Being with the Muslims. In the marketplace with the Muslims. Everyone understand this? Living and interacting with Muslims. Look at this city right here, Philadelphia. If you go down south, or you go to the Midwest, or you go far northeast, you go to Walmart or the supermarket, somebody may laugh at you wearing a thobe. Or they may stare at you wearing a thobe. Or they may look at you really funny with a big long beard. Or may say something about your wife. Why is she dressed like that? Does she have a bomb? Is she a ninja? Why she has a mask on her face? But the chances of that happening in Philadelphia are what? Slim to none. Why? Because the non-Muslims have what? They've lived. Not accepted, but they've what? It's normal. They're desensitized. For me to come to my house and see a sister walking in all black, no doubt, that's abnormal. In America, all black, walk down the street, get in a car, drive. It's shocking. But then, that's my neighbor. So I see her every single day. She takes her kids to school, she comes home, and she's wearing the same thing. It's not the same as someone living in Illinois or Atlanta, Georgia, in which they see somebody like, whoa, what is this? Everyone understand this? And their mockery, and their acceptance, and their hatred of it is not going to be the same as someone who has to live with their neighbor. Everyone understand this? Or their boss, or their employee, or their employer, or their boyfriend, or their girlfriend, unfortunately. It's the reality. Someone who lives with a Muslim. How do you accept Islam because of a boyfriend or girlfriend? Many of you brothers, I'm sure, sitting here, accepted Islam through a boyfriend or girlfriend or a sister. My boyfriend was a Muslim, and he gave me dawah. And I took my shot. I'm not making this up, nigga. It's not the truth. It's the reality. And it's not the same in a place in which there are few Muslims or less Muslims, or Islam is not that strong. Everyone understand this? So Ibn Taymiyyah says we've seen Jews and Christians in Syria, in Egypt, and other places who've lived with the Muslims. He says their kufr is less. Kama, he says here, كما رأينا المسلمين الذين أكثروا من معاشرة اليهود والنصارى هم أقل إيمانا من غيرهم. He says, just as we've seen Muslims who have lived with the Jews and the Christians and befriended them and taken their side and partnered with them and lived with them for a great time, he says their iman is less than other Muslims. Their strength, the strength of their Islam is what? He says it's not the same. And that can be applied to the city or other cities as well. What type of job you have, what type of background you come from, what type of money you make, where you live, your neighborhood is a huge difference. Why Islam in the inner urban city is a way, and why in the suburbs is in a what? A different way. Everyone understand this? It would be unheard of for there to be a masjid in the middle of the inner urban city doing anything pertaining to interfaith. No matter what the aqidah of the masjid is, they're not doing what? Interfaith. And if they are, it's very rare. But you go to suburban communities, different affluent communities, regardless of their ethnicity, interfaith is what? It's a higher percentage. Because those non-Muslims out there, and who they allow into their neighborhoods, and to their comfortable, luxurious life, is nothing like the inner urban city. So that's what Ibn Taymiyyah is saying, is that if you do it outwardly, it can have a huge effect upon that which is what? Inward. Ibn Qayyim, he then says, لأن المشابهة في الظاهر تدعو إلى الموافقة في الهدي الباطن كما دل عليه الشرع والعقل والحس. Ibn Qayyim, the prized student of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he says, and that is because agreeing with someone outwardly, it clearly calls to agreeing with someone inwardly. And this is proven by the Quran and Sunnah. This is proven by common sense. He says aql. And it's proven by his tangible things around you. No one can deny this. The character is a thief. And people rub off on people. People rub off on people. And the fact that you're wearing my jersey, or you're wearing the chain that you saw me wear in the video, or you're dressing how I dress, or walking how you see me walk and talk, that proves and that shows that you admire me. And there's some type of love and affection that you have for me, whether you acknowledge it or not. Everyone understand this? Whether it's subtle or whether it's plain in public. Ibn Qayyim even says, وَلِهَذَا جَاءَتِ الشَّرِيعَةُ بِالْمَنْعِ مِنَ التَّشَبُّهِ بِالْكُفَّارِ وَالْحَيَوَانَاتِ وَالشَّيَاطِينِ إِلَى آخِرِ كَلَامِهِ رَحِمَهُ اللَّهِ. He says, and for this reason, the Sharia prevents people from imitating the kuffar. And it prevents people from imitating animals. And it prevents people from imitating the shaitan, not eating with your left hand, drinking with your left hand, wearing this, sitting like this. And it's preventing men from imitating women, and obviously women from imitating men. And it is preventing people who live in civilized towns from imitating Bedouins, imitating a nomad, someone who's uncouth and crude. It's not supposed to be someone who lives in a what? A civilized town. And that's the end of Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala's speech. So these are a few statements of some of the greatest of the ulama of the past with regards to the general atmosphere and the general approach of any holiday that's not found in the Quran and the Sunnah. Whatever that holiday is, and wherever it is celebrated, in the Middle East, in North Africa, South Africa, in the United States, wherever that holiday may be. And the sufficient proof to remove Christmas from the Muslim's plate is the fact that it's not in our deen. And if it's not in our deen, then it's one or two things. It's either something which is harmful, or something which is beneficial, but its benefit doesn't reach our standard. It doesn't reach our standard. It's okay. It's all right for argument's sake, but it's nothing like the standard of Islam. And that's because the standard of Islam is extremely high. Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum. Allah says, on this day, I have perfected for you your religion. Wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati, completed my favor upon you. Allah didn't say, I've given you a favor. I've blessed you. I've given you Islam. Nah, I've sent down the religion. Allah never mentioned this. He says perfection and completion. So therefore, if you're used to eating gourmet, top-notch food, every single meal and snack and dessert, breakfast, lunch, dinner, can you go and eat from a hot dog cart? Seriously. Can you walk to a hot dog cart and enjoy the meal? And you get the best of the best, the food, the quality, and the preparation of the food for every single thing that you eat and drink. Can you just go and says, yeah, give me a, go on 7-Eleven, even worse than a hot dog cart, and get the hot dogs spinning on those metal bars all day. Or the pizza that's been sitting under the what? The lights all day. It's a reality. Can you come down to that level? You can't. Your taste buds won't even accept it. No matter how hungry you are. So the same applies to Islam. If it's not in the Quran and the Sunnah, then what use could it possibly what? Be. And if it is of use, it isn't what? It isn't of our standards. Everyone understand this is extremely, and everyone can relate to this. The shoes on your feet, the socks on your feet, you can't wear cheap, cheesy socks. Because it's not of your what? It's not of your standard. Do the socks not keep your feet warm? They do. They do. They look okay, but it's not your what? It's not your taste that you've been accustomed to wearing. So that is with regards to any holiday. Pagan, Christian, Jew, Christian, whatever it may be, that's not found in the Quran and not found in the Sunnah. Type. As far as the holiday of Christmas, then, as we said before, mixing. Like Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim mentioned, mixing. This is how Christmas came about. through Christians mixing with pagans, or through pagans accepting Christianity and not totally eradicating their pagan ways. So when we talk about the date, number one, the 25th of Christmas today, was that when Jesus was born? Does it say that in the scripture? The Old Testament, the New Testament? The disciples state that logically, was it even of sense for him to be born in the middle of the winter? Is that documented historically? And who was the first person to mandate that that was the birthday of Jesus Christ? If you talk to Christian scholars who are actual scholars and they're objective, they would tell you that the 25th of December is not scientifically proven the birth of Jesus Christ. So the question is, where did it come from? How did it come from? There's an ancient idol, an ancient goddess whose name was Mithra. And she was originally from Iran. She was a pagan goddess that was worshipped, adored, and there was a secret Roman cult that upheld her status. And it's proven and documented she was born on the 25th of December. So in actuality, the 25th of December is the celebration of the birth of a pagan goddess who had nothing to do with Christians or Christianity. So how did it seep into Christianity? Through Roman invasion into England. And when they invaded a place, they didn't just bring swords and spears and shields, but they brought what? Aqidah. And Aqidah never ever went away. But it doesn't stop there. We have Yuletide, or mistletoe, or Christmas tree, or lighting lights. Where do these things come from? It comes from the worship of Norse gods. In other words, Vikings, who were travelers, who were warriors, and who were conquerors. And many historians say they were the people to discover America first, before Columbus. Leif Erikson, as we said. The son of what? Of Eric, like your Bluetooth signal. You ever wonder what a Bluetooth is? Look at your phone. Look at it right now. Put it on your Bluetooth. Right now. What does that sign mean? Battery? Nah, it's not a battery. A banner. It's not a banner. What is it? What did you ever ask yourself? What does that symbolize? You have the Wi-Fi signal on. It's clearly something tangible. The light, the sound, the lock screen, auto rotate. What the heck is a Bluetooth signal? Look how odd and peculiar it is. Look at it. It doesn't even look right. Look at it right now. Seriously, I'm dead serious. You ever think about that? How weird it is? Extremely funny. And that's because it's not a mistake. It's a rune. It's a pagan symbol of King Harold. And his offsprings were the sons of Sony Ericsson. And they made Bluetooth. And he had a rotting tooth that was dark or blue. So the concept of the Viking influence on the United States and of America is profound. It's profound. So we're talking about the Norsemen, the Danish Vikings, Scandinavians, who went from the north to Britain, England, France, let alone to America. Obviously, they brought with them a lot of their culture. Moving forward, a famous section of Philadelphia is called what? Germantown. The Germans actually lived there. Why did they get the name? Out of him, it's called Germantown. Many things you eat, from hot dogs, hamburgers, ketchup, mustard, relish, pickles, pastrami sandwiches, all come from what culture? Germans. And what was the origin and the history of German or Germanic people? Was it Christianity? No, it was not. They were pagans and they were idol worshippers. They were what? They were idol worshippers. Ireland, before St. Patrick and people like this that brought and revolutionized their Christianity, they worshipped what? They worshipped idols. So this is all the foundation of Christmas. And during the winter, specifically from the 21st to the 6th of January, was a place or a time called the winter solstice. It was a time in which the nights were the longest and the days were the shortest. And it was a time in which they celebrated pagan gods and goddesses. And the Yuletide, a huge log, while the other relies a phallic idol, is symbolizing a sexual organ for fertility. So they would light the idol, and they would keep the idol lit for 12 days. And those 12 days, there were human sacrifices, animal sacrifices, all thrown and burnt alive for the honor of their god and of their goddesses, of their shirk. And the same applies to the Christmas tree, the fir tree. But before we go that deep, the concept of the fir tree, if you bash Christmas, then you're obviously going to have to talk about many, many other things that we do on a daily basis, such as having plants in your house. There is no origin of keeping plants in your house except for that of the mushrikeen. And there's no tree or plant or flower that you buy except that it is based off of superstition. Superstition. That's why you go to certain people who sell these things, and they won't sell certain plants to you. It's not even available because it's based off of good and bad luck. And the fir tree was something that they adored, something that they worshipped, and they looked to it for fertility. They worshipped trees. They were people of shirk and kufr. And they believed that there were spirits that were sent down into these trees. And that is why they took them and put them in their homes and lit them and decorated them. Everyone understand this? And there are many other pagan things that have direct connection to Christmas. Its date, as I just explained to you. Some of the things that they do, giving of gifts. Everyone understand this? Putting up a Christmas tree, and most importantly, the lights. Because it was darkness, it was a winter solstice. It was very long nights. And long nights mean darkness, and darkness means cold. And the only thing that would keep them warm and allow them to eat and to feed was fire. So they worshiped these things. How did these things creep into Christmas? Where did they come from? As I just explained. The people who were originally pagans, they never ever left it off. And those who came to Christianity, the Christians, they had to compromise to them. If you read the history of Christmas, I'm not going to give you everything, I can't give you everything. You'll find that it was basically a big, huge, gigantic worship of gods and goddesses. And not only did they make shirk and kufr and human sacrifice, but they also did a great deal of debauchery. They had orgies, they committed rape, they committed murder, and it would be days on end of drinking and reveling. So much so that Christmas was banned. Christmas, the Mass of Christ, Saturnalia, was banned in many European countries until they saw that the people couldn't do without it. They had to have fun, they had to drink, they had to fornicate, they had to have this type of wasting of time. So the Christians, instead of rejecting the holiday, they adopted it. And they tried to make it into a Christian holiday. And magically and mysteriously said, this is when Jesus was born. And the 12 days of Christmas. And because gold and frankincense and myrrh were given, now give gifts. And show your hospitality, and so on and so forth. But the thing that they either forgot or they allowed was the clear pagan rituals. The clear pagan rituals. And that's where the tree comes from. And that's where the mistletoe comes from. Where does Santa Claus come from? A very scary history of Santa Claus. Santa Claus is a secular figure. Santa Claus at one point in time was a saint, St. Nicholas. And St. Nicholas was even deeper than that. Where does the reindeer come from? Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. His origin is shaitan. Literally. And this is a historical fact. They commercialized it and they shaved it down to make it friendly and agreeable. But if you look at old books and sources, it shows you with this man, St. Nicholas, or Krampus with Ruprecht, a devil and a demon that he took as his servant. And the good kids were given toys and prizes, and the bad kids were given whips and what's the word I'm looking for? A switch. And that's why people hang socks up over the fireplace. And the whole entire Aqidah is all based off of paganism and idolatry, with the mixture and attaining of what? Christian Aqidah. Then the final blow is that of the consumerism and wasting. And there's some Christian scholars who say, and this is the last thing I'm going to say tonight in brief, there's some Christian scholars who say that even though they try to make Christmas to a secular holiday and has nothing to do with religion and nothing to do with faith, etc., they say that the entire concept of Christmas, it involves lying to your children and feeding your children lies. And they say that not only is this wrong in Christian scriptures, but it's also going to backfire against Christians and their propaganda. And that's because when a child grows up and he realizes that Santa Claus was a lie and Christmas was a lie and it was just a big joke, they will lose trust and they'll lose faith in what we told them and taught them when they were younger. So if they have the ability to doubt Christmas and the ability to doubt Santa Claus, then what about what they told us about Jesus Christ? Is that really true? Is there such thing as one of three? Did he die for our sins? Does the cross really represent what it represents? These are Christians now. We're not getting to what we as Muslims say. And our aqidah with regards to lying and lying to your children. And the effects of lying and raising your children upon what? Lies, even if it's a friendly joke or a white lie. But the bottom line is that you're telling your children that I told you something that wasn't right. So when they grow up, what is their position towards the other things that you what? Told them. Is the door not open for doubt? Let alone the fact that Christmas, no matter how much they try to make it to a secular holiday, it will always be a pagan holiday. And that is because the mystical belief of Santa Claus. Just look and break down everything about Santa Claus now. Where did he come from? Who is he? Let's not get into that right now. Look what he can do. He knows what you did. He knows those who are naughty and those who are nice. He has the ability to travel in every place, every land, every single country in one night and give reward or prevent reward. Number 3, Santa Claus, the children who want gifts and want to be treated and rewarded, are they thinking about Jesus Christ? Are they thinking about their deity? Or are they thinking about being rewarded and blessed by this figure, Santa Claus? So their hearts are based off of the love, the veneration, looking forward to, hoping and fearing Jesus Christ or who? Santa Claus. So every single thing about Santa Claus is based off of shirk. And you give him superpowers and unnatural abilities of a human being. Like he's a what? A god, a deity. You ever think about that now? Just stop and think about that. He has the ability to be in every place, every time. We Muslims, what is our belief about the unlimited power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah sees what? Everything. And hears what? Everything. The hadith of the Prophet tells us that towards the last part of the night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he descends. And he calls out to his servants, who calls on me, who begs of my forgiveness, who asks of my mercy that I may give them. So there's some people whom Allah has caused their hearts to be blind. They say, well, how can this hadith be true? And how can this hadith be literal when there are different time zones? So if it's the third of the night in Indonesia, it can't be the last third of the night in New York City. So how can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do this and the time zones clearly differ? Someone can say this. And our response as Muslims is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not restricted to that which the what? Human beings are restricted. For a human being to be in one place and every single time is logically what? Impossible. I'm not saying the law is in a place. I'm trying to make a concept. For a human being to be there and to do this in different time zones all at once is beyond the natural powers of any type of creation. So if you believe that someone has the ability to do that and to be there or to say this or to give this, that proves that you believe about that person what? Shirk. Fil rububiyyah, exactly. That's shirk in lordship. Is that he has things that are supernatural. Or maybe God gave them to Santa Claus. Jesus Christ gave him those powers. But then you just said that Christmas wasn't a what? A religious holiday. It's all secular now. So the point is that the holiday can never be removed from Christianity, nor can it be removed from what? From paganism. It has to be intertwined, no matter how you deal with it. And if you do escape that, then you cannot escape the other points that I've mentioned of consumerism, in which most businesses make 60% of their yearly earnings in one season. Just like Mecca and Medina. We know many brothers who own hotels. They don't work except for Hajj time. It's the only time they work. And their hotels are shut down and closed except for Hajj time. In other words, that's all the money I need for what? 12 months from Hajj. You understand this? I don't have to work except for what? Hajj time. That's all the money I need to suffice me for the entire year. And that's Christmas. 60% out of 12 months you can make in a month or a couple of weeks. It's a lot of money. Is that money being spent justly, equally? Is that in moderation? Of course not. There's spendthrift. You go out and you buy the most expensive things that your undeserving children demand and expect. So the point is, the bottom line, brothers and sisters, with a little bit of time that we have here, is that Christmas generally and specifically has nothing to do with Islam. Generally or what? Specifically. Based off of what I just mentioned in brief. Generally or what? Specifically. The religious aspect, the worldly aspect, the historical aspect. Rather, Christmas has nothing to do with Christianity from a historical aspect. And if it's far from Christianity, then obviously it's going to be far from Islam. I understand this? Has nothing to do with it. So a Muslim celebrating Christmas, allowing his children to partake in these festivities, saying Merry Christmas, etc., is going to be extremely problematic, let alone if you put antlers on your car with the red nose in the front. May Allah help us all, bless us all, and forgive us all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to understand these realities. Brothers, please just don't take this from me. Go read. It's not just facts that I'm just making up. Go read it yourself. Read the nice subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll find all this information and much, 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 much more of the dark, hidden, and untold history of these pagan holidays, and how we are victimized thereby. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. How much time we have, Abu Sajid?
What time would you want? Where the other lecture at that you say on the before?
1 second, inshallah.
Oh, all right, 1 second.